Invitation hymn. I talked to Carlotta. She was in the hospital. She can't keep anything down. Everything she eats, she throws up. And she was supposed to go to have her chemo today's Wednesday. And don't laugh, because you'll probably will. Buck tore up her truck, tore the transmission out of it. So she has nowhere to go. So I called when I found out about it. Well, I talked to her the day before, and I found out about she's supposed to go today. At about the time she was supposed to go, I said, "How's everything turning out?" Well, she's in the bed asleep. And so he said, "Do you want me to wake her up?" I said, "Of course not." Well, he said, "When she wakes up, I'll have her call you." Well, he probably forgot. She never called. But it's a bad circumstance that she's in. And the chemo is to treat the same type of cancer that Ray and Rana had. So those bad deals. So I told her, I said, I heard you, no, she told me, she said, you know my luck. I said, yeah. I said, you know that song, "If it weren't for bad luck, you'd have no luck at all"? And she laughed. But I called the transmission specialist, and he said it'd probably take $1,500 to rebuild her transmission. Now, her truck's probably worth $1,500, so, The trouble is, if she's going to let everybody and his uncle drive it, it's going to be hard to keep it going. Bobby had a car that Buck broke in, and it's been in the garage now for what, 3 or 4 years? 5 years, 6 years?
10 years.
Is it?
6. It's been there since I had it.
We bought the house in 2009. It's been in the garage since.
2009?
Yeah.
All right, what we want to talk about tonight is the wiles of the devil, or another terminology, is it the anatomy of sin, or another thing is to try to understand what happened in the Garden of Eden, and in doing so, what it means to be able to follow the pursuits that led to the fall of Adam. If you want to turn first to the book of James, the first chapter. I, as a young preacher, decided that I was going to master the book of James. And after I preached 2 or 3 sermons from it, I thought, well, I better leave it alone. It's mastered me. James is an extremely interesting book, but it has a lot of depth. James, the first chapter, and verse 12.
And it says, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him."
Now, that is a loaded verse. Blessed is the man that endures, not the man that's tempted, the man that endures. There's the missing link. Keep going.
"Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man."
Now, read carefully and slowly. 14.
"But every man is tempted, when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed. Then when conceived, it bringeth forth sin. It bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death.
All right. Did you understand all that? Read 14 and 15 again.
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
Now, the man is going to be blessed who endures what? Being drawn away of his own lust. What is lust? It's something that you desire that you know is not yours. It is something that is that you've decided you can have just because of who you are and the fact that you are big and bad enough to do it. And when you're drawn away of your own lust, you're enticed. Now, this is an interesting word. What does it mean to be enticed? Okay, when you have been in the hills, or you are thinking of water, when you turn the water on, can you stop it from flowing? Can you stop it where you want to stop it? Can you make it do what you want it to do? The thing of enticement is involved with all of that. When sin starts, and it starts like water rolling down the hill, or somebody says, well, I got a bathtub, I can stop the water from running out of my bathtub. No, you can't. The plunger, that's a mechanism in the tub does. You yourself just sit there and watch it roll on out. Can you stop it where you want to? Yeah, if you're good with the plunger. But what if you don't have a plunger? Well, you see, there's something outside that is left. The steps of transgression are those which always lead into trouble. They never lead to God. And because they lead to trouble, they lead toward destruction. The action of sin does not determine when sin is committed, but all lead in one direction. That sin, most of the time, has been committed in the heart before the action ever takes place. James gives us a definition of sin that we need to comprehend. And if you want to read the first through the 14th verses, you'll see we just read 2 verses tonight, which are on the subject at all together. But if you'll turn back now to Genesis, the 3rd chapter, you're going to see the action, the wiles, the anatomy, how and what brings about sin. Genesis 3, 1 through 10. Read, sir.
1 through 10, it says, Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God hath made.
Now, subtlety is what? Cunning, wiser. He understood the ramifications. He was, by understanding the ramifications, the better advantaged. Because he knew what he was doing. So who was he going to pick on? Keep going.
He said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said.
It's been conjectured by a lot of people that Satan, and you've seen this happen in sin, said, what? Are you crazy? Give me some of that. I'll show you. It don't hurt me. What did that prove? Well, by the person that wasn't too wise, it proved everything. Well, if it don't hurt me, it don't hurt. I mean, if it don't hurt the snake, it's not going to hurt me. I'm human. That is an animal. I have intelligence. Now, he may be wise and cunning, but if it didn't hurt him, it won't hurt me. And then what did she do after she figured that out? She looked upon the reed.
Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall surely not die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
Now, can you imagine arguing with a snake? Would it have been something that the snake have said to her, I ate of that fruit, I can talk now. Let's discuss this. I want to talk to you about what's going to go on. So what happened next?
When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat.
All right. She saw it. Here are the steps that lead to sin. By her seeing it in the covenant under which she had never been invited to enter, and at the point of her position in life, looking at it didn't bother her at all. But what it did do was open a door. She should teach her eyes what to look at. For when you behold something that you have a sense that is wrong, what is it that teaches you or gives you the instinct that it is wrong? Eve had instinct. Eve had the law of nature. Eve was one who was amenable to that which God had given her instinctively. She looked at it. Her instinct was from God. But she says, look, I can handle it. I have power greater than it does. Look, I can take it and I can eat it. And if she did so, and we're just conjecturing, when she ate it, what did it do to her? Nothing. Did it make her think she was naked? No. Where did she get the idea she was naked? Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But when she took of the fruit, she did so because the first thing she did is that she participated in an action that thousands have followed her by ignoring the conscience that God has given us. What was going to be the result? If nothing else, she showed that she had a practice that had not necessarily been brought to our attention, that now we can begin to see what was there. She dishonored God. She said, God said, but that's a big whoop. Who could care what God said? It was something that God had dictated, but she didn't care what God said. She didn't pay any more attention to what God said because coming through her eyes, she saw something that she adjudicated or she judged that's harmless. Now, maybe she was convinced by the devil. Maybe she says, I'm big enough to handle this. A lot of things that are involved in this. But the actions that she did were, first of all, is that she looked on it. Now, whether you realize it or not, the eyes are the windows through which many things can enter. And when they enter, they directly affect the heart. They can affect it either by guilt or grief. But if they're not accountable, they are not affected with understanding. You see, what Eve assumed is that the command given was a command that would affect her as it would have and did affect Adam. Satan wouldn't have been affected, would he? Would it have been a problem for Satan to eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil? Would it have been any more of an effect on Eve? She could have sat there and made a salad out of it with blue cheese dressing. And it wouldn't have affected her at all. And she was then satisfied with the fact. God's wrong. Why is God cheating me? Why and how would God be cheating her? Why, she looked at that and she said, that looks good to eat. That looks something that would be palatable to my taste buds. Something I can enjoy. So now, instead of God being love, God is somebody who keeps me from something I will enjoy just because God wants to control me. And I don't want to be controlled. She could have and should have done what Job did with his eyes. Do you remember what Job said that he did with his eyes? He said, I made a covenant with my eyes that there's things that I won't look on. Now today we have used to be something that was very common in this world called girl watchers. There's a lot of people that allow themselves to look on things that are to their detriment. And therefore, because of that, they do the wrong thing. And by looking upon those things that are to their detriment, they don't think that their understanding or their mind or their intellect is affected. But we're in danger. mocks God. I says, I don't need to worry about this. I can handle anything I want to handle. I don't need to worry about looking upon the wine while it is red. I don't need to worry about drinking my beer. I don't need to worry about drinking my wine. I can handle it. Because I can handle it, I don't think God's that smart. Look at Genesis 20:16 while you're here. Yeah.
It says, "To Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to be the covering of the eyes to all that are with thee. With all other, lest she was reproved."
I'll read that again because you stumbled through it.
Unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with thee, and with all other, lest she was reproved.
She was what? You don't know what reproved means. That means she was corrected for her silly attitude about what she was going to do. Now, who was the covering of her eyes? Her brother. How come her brother had an ability that she didn't have? Because what enticed her didn't entice him. And God knew that. And so the point was that God knew it. He gave her some help. What did she do with the help? That's what's interesting. Now, the next thing, and we're back in Genesis 3, the next thing that Eve did after she looked at it with her eyes, that's the first part of temptation. That's the first part of sin. That's the first door that opens. If you would never look upon a girl to lust after her in your heart, you would never have that problem. If you could control your eyes so that you would never ever be one who is sitting around staring at some woman's waistline or other parts of her anatomy, you don't ever have to worry about it. Or if you have a friend or an acquaintance that has strength of purpose that's better or greater than yours, that you listen to and be one who's guided by. When they see you going in the wrong direction or going the wrong way, if you'll listen to their admonition, they'll help you not get into that problem. But you know what happens? That's right. It's like just covering your eyes. They'll stop you from it. Wake you up, bring you back to consciousness, bring you an awareness to where you are. They can affect you in a way that needs to be affected. But what did she do? She took of the tree. I like this. They came out with something not too many years ago, is that the devil made me do it. Did the devil make Eve take of the tree? Did Satan make Eve take of the tree? What caused Eve to take of the tree? Eve did. See, it had already entered through the eyes. And when it got through the eyes, it affected the heart, the conscience. And when it got to the heart or the conscience, she said, hey, look at that boy, he got no problems. I mean, probably did. So what she did, as she took it, it was her own act. We may be tempted by Satan, but he can't force us to act. We may be persuaded by good biscuits and gravy, but we'll never get fat if we don't eat them. That's what they tell me. Yes, sir. What he does, though, is if we're not careful, since he's gotten into the mind and we've mocked God, we make ourselves a thief. Do you realize Eve was a thief? She took what didn't belong to her. And she acted as though it was her. And when she took what didn't belong to her, she took that accursed thing. Remember the old boy in Joshua the 7th chapter by the name of Achan? Y'all read about Achan lately? Turn to Joshua 7 right quick. You'll find there that the children of Israel went up against Ai. And Ai was a much smaller force and a much lighter weight army. And they were ones that would be the easy victory.
Joshua 7.
Well, I don't know. You look at the what? Find Achan. I think it's around verse 14. Achan was a leader in the army of God. Look at the position he was in. He had a lot of people following him. And Achan comes across some gold.
Oh, yeah, here's one hidden in the tent.
Yeah. Well, now what did God call that gold? Read.
And he brought his household man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. And Joshua said unto Achan, My son, give, I pray thee, glory to the Lord God of Israel, and make confession unto him, and tell me now what thou hast done, hide it not from me. And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and thus have I done. When I saw among the spoils a godly
Try it again.
Goodly Babylonish.
Garment, and 200 shekels. I can't say that.
I'm trying to keep you in that trouble.
Wait.
You're doing it.
Then I coveted them and took them, and behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent.
Now wait a minute. So what was the first thing he did? Came through his eyes. When it came through his eyes and he closed them, he could still see it. You ever notice that every once in a while when you see something and it's not supposed to be something you were a part of, that you could see it later? Well, he saw that. And he said, I coveted that. You know what it means to covet? I decided I needed that more than I needed God. And so when I saw that and I coveted, what did I do?
Sin.
No, he didn't sin yet. Had he sinned right there at this moment?
Was sin in his heart, right?
Well, but under that law in which he lived, there was no possibility of that. But you're right. Today it would be a sin in the heart.
Yeah.
But when he saw that, what did he do? He made plans. The old gal said to the boy, yeah, you got to come see me sometime. He said, yeah, what time? 7 o'clock tonight? See, they made plans. If they'd never made plans, would he have ever gotten in trouble?
No.
Okay. But it came through the eyes. The next thing he did is he took advantage. Read that again. He took it and did what now? I coveted. Please, read.
When I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonish, right?
The Babylonish, but that's all right.
Babylonish garment, 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels of weight. Then I coveted them and took them.
And I'd take that to be president any time. Go ahead.
And behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. So Joshua sent messengers.
Wonder why he took it and hid it.
You know,
He wasn't supposed to have it.
He knew better, didn't he? He was out fighting a battle for God. He was out leading the army against Ai. He was one that was a captain in the army. And he saw that, and he looked around and saw nobody watching him, and he took that and he hid it in his tent. Keep reading.
So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hidden in his tent, and silver under it. They took them out into the tent and brought them unto Joshua, and to all the children of Israel, as they desired. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan son of Zerah, and silver and garment, and weight of gold, and his sons and his daughters and his oxen, and his asses and his sheep and his tents, and all that he had. And they brought them unto the valley of Achor. Joshua said, Why hast thou troubled us? The Lord shall trouble thee this day. And all Israel stoned him with stones and burned them with fire. After that,
Burned who? Them. But wait a minute. Who's the only cat that was in this sin? Achan was the only guy that did the sinning. Who paid for it? His children, his wife, and her people, and his people. And they stoned him with stones. They all died because he was wiser than God. How much better off would it have been had he listened to his conscience? And when he started digging that hole to put that accursed thing in there to hide, he said to himself, there ain't no 7-Eleven around here. I can't go buy me a Slurpee. What am I doing with this? I don't need this. I'm fighting in the army of God. Who's taking care of me all this time? But he listened to what his eyes brought to his heart. Like Job, he would have been better off. Like many Christians have done and can do, and that is make a covenant with their eyes. And when your eyes come upon that accursed thing, what's the first thing that you say in your heart? No, no, no. I refuse. Somebody else say, well, you're a wimp, or you're a homosexual, or you're this, or you're that. Good. I'm just not going to be a sinner. Call me whatever you want to. I'm not going to play the part.
God even warned them prior to that.
Sir?
God even warned them before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Joshua, yeah, came to him, and thank you, I forgot about that.
Yeah. You were asking what it was called. It was called the cursed.
Yeah, the accursed thing, right? If I remember correctly. All right, so why was it accursed? Was gold an accursed thing? No, but what did he do? The same thing that Eve did. He stole. You see, people don't believe that Eve was a thief. But the first thing she did was steal. Was it a sin? No, there was no law then which said thou shalt not steal, unless you understand that it was the law of the conscience. And because, and you'll have to understand that in a few minutes, it was the law of the conscience, she had done what was wrong. She'd have done herself a favor. So would Achan. So would all of us, because we've all been guilty, to make a covenant with our eyes. Because, you just don't need to look at that. I've seen these old boys standing around in the grocery stores, or I've seen them get these magazines, or I've seen these people turn on TV, and they, it's an interesting thing. I got 169 channels on my TV set. I can immediately tell you where the sex channels were. Of course, mine's fixed. I don't want them to be on. So if it comes to that channel, you know what happens? There's a little thing comes on there and says, you got to pay for this. And I say to myself, thank you, I ain't paying. It's not something that I did, it's something they did for me. But the point of it is, that's done me a favor. Because you can get enticed to the extent that it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, what happens? I don't know if Eve had a couple of salads of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I don't know if she had any salad dressing. But what she did was put herself as an unsuspecting novice in a place of jeopardy. But then there was something else that was a close around. Go back to Genesis 3 now.
And
After she took it, what happened then?
gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
Oh, the way of sin. She did what?
Gave unto her husband, and he did eat.
Oh, the way of sin. You ever notice one drunk don't like to drink alone? You ever notice that? Once the process has begun, we don't say, hither thou shalt come and go no further. In other words, we can't stop. Now somebody will say, well, I can drink me 6 beers and it never makes me drunk. Yeah, give it a little time. You'll get up to 16 or 20. And after a while, you'll think that you're not drunk, but you already are. And when you get in that position, you don't have an inclination to leave it alone before you meddle with somebody else's life. Sadly, like anybody that is involved in sex or alcohol or drugs or thievery or anything else like that, the first thing they do is try to find somebody to participate in it with them. What did Eve do the minute she took of that tree? She offered it to Adam. Now, Adam had a completely different concept. Adam knew better, understood, had made an agreement with God. But what did Eve do? What do you want to do? Play Mr. Christian? You want to act like you're better than I am? You mean to tell me you're going to let this affect you? Some of these leaves or some of this bottle or some of this marijuana or some of this extra sexual activity. You can find people that you can affect. And the ones that you usually affect the most are the ones closest to you. It's always interesting to me, and I've always told you this. I'll go to people's house, and invariably they'll offer me a beer. Have you ever gone to their house and them offer you a Bible? Try it, buddy. You talk about something that stammers the tongue, and they go, You walk in there and say, hey, Joe, can I get you a beer? I said, no, can I get you a Bible? What? I said, a Bible. I'll let you drink of the water of life freely. Won't cost you a dime. Well, we knew you were weird. But inevitably, she did what she wouldn't have done had she been able to reason about it. She involved the innocent. That's the reason it's so important to watch who you hang around. She gave it to old Adam. Those who sin are those who do themselves wrong, are those who are also willing, more than the saints of God, unbelievably, to share their poison when we won't even share with them the truth of the gospel. It's a sad thing, but what did she do after she ate? She gave it to Adam, and he did what? Read again. He did eat. Sounds simple, don't it? It sounds like something that would be a bother. He did eat. that sounds kind of simple and plain. Doesn't it sound like it wouldn't affect anybody? They'll draw somebody into the snare. It's needless to ask what would have been the results if he had never eaten. And the results would have been that neither would have ever sinned. Now, Paul says that Eve didn't sin. She was in the transgression. She was the leader of the pack. She became what to Adam he never considered, his eye of opportunity. Maybe Adam would have noticed that forbidden fruit and thought, maybe one of these days. But he'd never gotten around to it because, when you're the king of the world, you've got a lot of things to take care of. And it was probably, as what we understand, there's only one tree in the world that's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Like there was one tree that had the tree of life. And he'd probably figured out that one of these days he might eat that. Who knows? But he'd never done what he had covenanted with God not to do until the closest thing to his anatomy that was given by God to him became the source of his sin. They'll draw somebody into this snare. But he ate. Seems innocent enough, but the actions showed disbelief in God's word. It also did something else that people don't think about. It showed confidence in the fact that the devil was right. I can't drink, you can't drink, it won't affect you, it will affect you. Who's going to make the difference? Whose God you serve. Aided by Eve's discontent and her alarm by not being the head of the pack, or not being first in the order of law, caused her to resent being told what to do. Because she said, if somebody's going to tell me what to do, it's going to be me that tells me what to do. It might as well have been her. But the question I need to ask you is something that has always been interesting to me. Had Eve been left alone, had Satan not seen that faraway look in her eyes or whatever it was, had he not seen some action that he could really respond to and draw her out on, maybe he heard her say something. You never can tell. Whatever it was, he picked up on a weakness that she had decided she was going to participate in. And surely it was true. God hadn't told her not to eat of it. He'd only told Adam. Would it have been a sin? Well, Eve was never in a covenant with God, so it couldn't have been a sin. What was it that caused her to do this? It's an interesting thing. More interesting than we know. But she's telling us something that a lot of people don't listen to. The worst enemy a lot of times that you have is not yourself, but the person you take complete confidence in and never think that they may lead you down the forbidden path. Two people in the world. How many? Did they have neighbors? Did they have anybody to hear them holler and scream and carry on? Do you think Adam and Eve ever had an argument? Did she ever tell Adam that the water is too hot in the shower? Or what was the deal? What caused her to rebel against God? The first thing she rebelled against was the immediate authority over her. Her husband. And because she went into that position and had won the day, the next thing she was going to do was break old Adam in. She's going to give him something that was worthwhile. And the basis for all of this sin was the fact that she was going to do what Adam knew that was wrong, but what she knew she's going to make Adam give in to. We have a lot of people that we try to warn and try to teach and try to help, but they're going to do what they want to do because they just don't really think God's right. They really don't believe what he's got to say. When God says, thou shalt not, or don't disobey the law, or don't look on the wine when it is red, or don't bring something into your body that will kill you, or thousands of things that are involved in. And we decide to go ahead and do it. We are showing rebellion against God. And of course, if the leader of the pack can rebel, who else is going to follow? I asked somebody the question the other day, why did Eve put on fig leaves? Keep on reading Genesis 3. See if you can hear the answer. Why did she put on fig leaves?
Then they knew they were naked.
And it says they both knew. Now this word knew is interesting in the Hebrew. Keep reading.
And the eyes of them were, and the eyes of both, and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew not that they were.
Well, you mean they'd been walking around with their eyes closed? You mean a guy that's going to do something that God tells him not to do is walking around with his eyes closed? Read that again.
And the eyes of them both were opened.
Whoa, man. See what a sermon this makes? And how true it is. And now keep going. After they were open, what'd they do?
And they knew that they were naked.
They. Now it's interesting that the plural is used in the Hebrew. Who knew that they were naked? Who was the leader of the pack? How would Eve have had a consciousness of being naked? Why would Adam have a consciousness of being naked? Now, we've all experienced this with our children. Somebody will say, that's the most incredible thing I ever heard of. You got children? They can walk around no clothes on, and they don't walk around and say, oh, I want to hide myself. I wrote a sermon last night on modesty. And I'll preach it probably some Sunday. But when a person has immodest apparel, they're advertising. And they're advertising for a buyer. And the buyer is the one who will see. It will then control their conscience. Their conscience will control their appetite, or the commander of the body. The commander, all of these things have to occur before they commit the act of sin. Now go back to James again and let's read this. Let's start with verse 12. James 1.
James 1 and 12.
Blessed is the man that endureth temptation.
James 12. You said?
James 1 and 12.
Yeah, I was about to say there's no such thing. Okay. James 1 and 12, it says, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him.
What if he is tried and fails? The crown is no longer his. What about the people that follow his example? Either that or they have to be disseminatingly wise enough to know that the leader of the pack doesn't have the wisdom he should have. Keep going.
Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man.
Now talk to me about this temptation again. That's the wiles of the devil. You see with the eyes, you decide you're going to mock God and become a thief. You're going to take what doesn't belong to you. You're going to thievery. You're going into stealing. You're going into disobeying a law that you don't have the right to disobey because you didn't make it. So after you steal, then you decide you can control your own destiny. If somebody's going to make you do something, it's going to be you, because you're the only thing you know in this world that's smart enough to tell you what to do. You've already decided God's not smart enough because you're doing something else. Keep going.
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
And that drawing away is the anatomy of sin. And he did eat. And when he ate, that which seemed innocent enough wasn't. It showed that he didn't believe in God, or he wasn't a man of his word, or she had convinced him that what God said was as good as what she said. And why do we put it off on the woman? Because the man and the woman play both parts in either side of life. It could have been, or can be today, the other way. I had a man tell me the other day that he wouldn't allow his wife to go to anybody's church. I said, and why? Because he said, there's nobody going to tell her what to do but me. And I said, when is it you got to be the smartest thing walking? But he had decided that his wisdom was greater than God's. And he wasn't going to allow her to come to where she could hear the word of God. The anatomy of sin, the wickedness of the devil, the wiles of the devil, the devices of Satan. If we get involved, they can take over in our lives like they can in anybody else's. You want to be real careful, because when man has sinned and is overcome in sin, verse 15, Austin. I'll read it. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, understood when it is conceived or is finished, bringeth forth death. That's the reason a lot of people tell you they don't believe you've got to be baptized to be saved. They're smarter than God. And because they're smarter than God, they're not paying attention to what God says. Number 200.